Candice Owens and white leftists. Cass Lass says, I went to 2 racist private schools before I finally got a say and was able to attend public schools with other black kids after I was suicidal and legit sick and throwing up every day. Yeah. Sorry that was your experience, but yeah, that's like people in this. So bringing this back to the white, and I'm gonna stop saying white leftists in this case because the leftists there is vestigial. Right? People use white leftists when they're criticizing white people who are supposed to be in community on some level. But really the leftist part has nothing to do with the white part here. The white part is the problem, which is like that idea that Candice Owens has more value to add to an interpersonal discussion about race with me, another black person, than a white person. I don't care how many books you've read. I don't care. It doesn't matter. There is a gap there. There is a gap. That gap is the racialized black experience. And it's weird. And I don't know how much more harassment Kat Black has been getting after her, activities the last couple of weeks, but it's clear that, and I saw one of her threads, like some little white girl is like all up in her mentions, trying to explain to her why, no, she definitely should always want to allow white women in her circles and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to try to be clear because I don't know, like to a certain extent, I know there's no explaining this to folks that are just not capable of getting it in this particular season. But I feel like some folks maybe can. So I want to be more intentional here. I'm not talking about validating or platforming a Candice Owens. I'm not saying Candice Owens' takes or like ideas about race in America are of value from a political or policy standpoint. Not at all. I've made how many videos? I maybe have mentioned Candice Owens once before this video. I tend to not at all platform or drudge up certain folks that it's like they're just grifters and there's no reason to speak their name. For me personally, you can find that content elsewhere. But what I am saying is that I guarantee you I have more in common with Candice Owens' experience of blackness than any white person's experience of blackness. And that if I ask Candice Owens what her mom played while she cleaned the house, she'll probably say Anita Baker. And if you don't get that reference, that's kind of the point. That may be an old reference too. I don't know how many of y'all are my age, but there are reference points for the black experience that you cannot have if you do not have the black experience. Just like I cannot speak on certain experiences about being white or queer or trans or an immigrant or a lot of things. I appreciate when I'm invited to certain conversations. I appreciate when my ideas are validated or co-signed by people within that community that say, yep, that makes sense. Yep, you're right there. And I am fine when it's like, yeah, this conversation is not for you, Feet. Catch you next time. You know what I'm saying? But there's something about, I'll just say white people with progressive politics. It's funny. And I won't say it comes from a good place. It doesn't come from a good place, but it doesn't come from a overtly malicious place all the time. Is there a Candice Owens redemption arc? Not in my story. There's only so far you can go. Like we'll bring you back in quietly, but you better shut the fuck up when you get there. You know what I'm saying? Don't come in try to Gold Fro, Frankie Beverly and Mays in heavy rotation. There you go. Where was I at? But there's no Candice Owens could never flip the script back to speak for Black people again. Not in my book. But we haven't always been the best at picking spokespersons, or better, more importantly, to be fair, our spokespeople are not always picked based on our actual inclinations. They're chosen by the powers that be. That's a good one. Hyperbala says Candice can't get that Don Lemon treatment. Right. That's a good example. Yeah, so Don Lemon was hardcore respectability politics. Ooh, Don Lemon had the classic respectability politics. And for those who don't know, respectability politics, which goes back in hand with that, white man's ice is colder ideology, basically says if Black people would just do blank, as in pull your pants up, cut your hair, stop speaking slang, speak proper English, whatever else, name your kids American names, that all the racism will go away and people will get further in life. And don't get me wrong, there's evidence to say that if you do less Black shit, you'll get 1 or 2 debuffs off your system, maybe, right? But fuck that. Fuck that. No. You shouldn't have to diminish your cultural identity to try to dodge anti-Blackness. And it is pretty clear that no amount of assimilation will keep you from getting the same shit that I got as a Black man with locks, with a very non-white name, so on and so forth. And Cosby said that same shit. That's like Gen X going back. That is like a prevailing belief that if I'm so bold to be critical of elders and ancestors, I think a prevailing belief, and this is before they understood critical theory, critical race theory, intersectionality, right? So I'm standing upon the shoulders of giants. But this is before they understood that no matter what they did, because racism is the word of the day, the system will always reshape itself to make sure the hierarchy is maintained. So Don Lemon came through CNN. He was a pioneer because he was the first openly gay Black man that I could think of with that level of public, in the public eye. And so that was cool. But then every other, in the middle of Obama's term too, every other Black issue, he was like, well, why don't they just listen to what the police say? You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of shit. I'm pretty sure Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier is full of respectability politics. I hate to break that to you, star person, whoever said that. Sidney Poitier is the original acceptable Negro. God bless his soul, love him to death. Did a lot for the community, a lot for the culture. He was still the first acceptable Negro. It is what it is. This is why I don't believe in reducing people to their worst elements, because Poitier did so much greatness, but he was very purposefully an acceptable Negro in the media eye. So Don Lemon, to explain the person's comment, then I'm gonna get to this comment from Greg L. So after being really hated by the Black community during most of Obama's era, like a lot of people, myself included to an extent, the election of Trump kind of woke Don Lemon up. And I was never on no respectability politics shit, but Trump helped fully solidify me moving further left. And so Don Lemon clearly started reading some more books and he stopped being on that bullshit. And now he's been reclaimed. He's still, we still keeping an eye on him. But overall, for his role, right, in entertainment news media, he's been reclaimed. I don't think that's possible for Candice Owens. But even still, just kind of wrapping that point up, there's no redemption arc for Candice Owens. But there is no such thing as a conversation about race, about the Black experience. Let me rephrase that. There's no such thing as a conversation about the Black experience between a Black person and a non-Black person. There's no such thing as that, because what that is a lecture. What that is me telling you about the Black experience, and you maybe asking questions, listening, finding similarities, finding common ground, etc. It's not saying that that conversation shouldn't happen, or that non-Black people can't contribute to conversations about Black issues, or, you know, like I have white, some of my best friends are white. Oh, I'm sorry. But a real conversation about the Black experience, a conversation means it's going back and forth. And so it's not that white people are excluded from conversations about race. It's just that it's a different conversation. And so going back to the origin of that little throwaway line that was from Cat Black talking about white leftists feeling like inclined to be in part of every conversation. No, that's not how it works.